Hi, hey guys, Sam here with you on Thursday morning, March 30th here, and it's being a day we devote our video analysis to crypto. We put it to a vote amongst the members, and no surprise, the overwhelming choice for today was Bitcoin, despite the fact that we did an update on Tuesday. It's been enough of a breakdown here to where it warrants at least a technical update on where we are. So in trying to get a sense of where Bitcoin is, where we could be going, some critical levels here, I've gone all the way out to the daily here. Now, as anyone who watches my videos knows, I'm a long-term bull, and so I recognize that bias, and I in part I confirm it when I talk to you all. Excuse me. And additionally, I'm just confirming it in my own mind so that I'm trying to stay as objective as I can about what I'm seeing in the market. So this is our critical pivot, right? So I think we can all agree on that. And part of that, the reason that I suggest that is, and I've shown this many times, is from this swing low to swing high here. So you can see that here was the first algo target. So working from our all-time high to our A wave. Yes, here's the 618. Yes, we broke it, but ultimately came back down. Here's the first target. Here's the second target. So these are the two critical pivots to me that I'm basing a big part of this analysis off of. Now, nothing says that can't break. We could easily be heading down. I mean, this is a target just sitting down here screaming at us, right? So if I can find my hot box here. So how do you ignore that, right? That would just be textbook. Now, we would certainly be changing the count. If we violate this low, then the bullish count gets essentially obliterated with that. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't ultimately get bullish again, but right now, this is really a last stand here on this pivot. So we can objectively make the statement that from this swing low to this swing high, we are still making an internal retracement, right? Until we break that low, we are internally retracing that move. Now, is this a 5 wave, or do we need to reconsider that as an ABC in a 1-2 with a very deep 2? That's something that has to be considered. But right now, what we can say as definitively as possible is that we know this is a critical pivot. This was a critical pivot, and then we have a longer term target all the way down here at, we call it $3,000, just to round it. So looking in there, you might say, well, what else? Is there anything else we can do to build a case for potential targets here? So if I take the secondary swing here from, did I get that pull? Yeah, there we go. So from my B high to this, which I acknowledge as a critical pivot, right? This is the one we all see that is the double top here into the 50. Well, interestingly, note how that algo target lines up down here with the median line that has supported that has been the geometry of this market through the entire bear move. So that negative 23 giving us a bit of a cluster down here for a confluence zone down at between, let's call it 3,000 and 3,300. So we have that target down there. All right, so we have to acknowledge that. This is our last stand. My evaluation would be that if we're breaking that, then this is the natural next target where we're headed. These algos that sold here that have just stayed short, they will stay short until they realize that target or this 65 is broken. So we can look at that and say, all right, well, recognizing that that's down there, is there any case we can build here to support a bullish bias, as in something that would sustain holding this pivot low, right? It's likely to be challenged, but if it's not already being challenged, right? If we break this low, which so far it's just been a double bottom. But we know that's down there. All right, so let's dig in here. Now let's go down to a smaller time frame. So if I go down to the 4 hour, and let this percolate here, there are some challenges with that count. Right? There's challenges with all of the counts right now. Bitcoin is difficult to get a clear vision of where it is. So what can we do? We can just work with the probabilities, tendencies, and what we see here. What can we objectively qualify? Well, there's a few things that we can see right off the bat. So if you're just trying to back into a count, So one thing that we can do is start counting off the 5s and 3s to get a handle of where we might be. So if we work from this, as I proposed here, as a double top into a truncated 5th, which is how I have it in my primary count. The straight rip down into the 3 wave, it leaves only 2 choices. So either that's a 1-2 or that's an AB. Right, so the premise being that if we're supporting the idea that this is a significant pivot, we are still internal, that because that's a corrective move, right, we're correcting this swing, that the first move down, as I've proposed it, is an A wave. This is a 3-wave B. It was not terribly deep, so if I look at that and consider it, we didn't even make the 50. So, you know, just a yellow flag, right? So you'd like to see that the prime zone is from the 50 to the 786. So weak market, it doesn't quite make it. Could be algos front running. Could be the front run on the 50. That's certainly potential here. And you can see that they got that to and through a bit to that target. So if they were front running here, they've already achieved that target, and we saw the reaction here. So now we can look at that and go all the way down and say, okay, well, if that were an ABC and we had completed, well, now we're coming back the other direction. So let me pull this off to declutter the chart, because that'll confuse us. Wrong one. So let me get, this is what I want off of here. If I can get it highlighted, let's get you off. Okay, and then I want, come on. There we go. Let's get that off as well. All right, there we go. Now we clear it up. So looking in here now, so we can see that we've got a 3 here and potentially a 3 here. So these would be the corrective waves of what appears to be a 5 and now a second 5 following. So we can look at that and say, well, if that were an ABC, right? So part of the idea was that if that was an ABC we completed here, this was not the prettiest, but a potential 1-2. Well, as we double bottom down here, you know, technically it's just a double bottom, so we can't disqualify that completely, but that would be very suspect. It would surprise me if that holds, but it's a contender. So we can look at the 5 wave here. So we get a very clear 5 here, and it would appear that we get a 1-2, this 3 setting up for a secondary 5. So what else could that be, and how can we qualify this? Well, if this were to be, let's give it from the bear side of it. If this were to be 1-2, the shallowness of this, the fact that we don't get to 100%, we have the symmetry of the 5-wave structure. We don't get a great ABC, but it's there, and then we immediately go into another 5. So what could that be? Well, that could be 1-2, 1-2, right? And then potentially, I mean, I suppose it could be another 1-2, but it doesn't play as well to be 1-2, 3, 4 down for a 5th. I mean, I suppose that's a possibility. So you might be able to trade this as, if this were 1-2. So even that doesn't really, you know, I'm trying to build the case for the bears, and so unless you're playing this as, if this were an ABC and this were 1 with a deep 2, this really doesn't play as a 3 because you don't have the symmetry that you'd look for. We have the long 1, shallow 2, then this an unlikely candidate for the 3rd. However, we could have a diagonal. So we could be looking at an ending diagonal, but that supports more of the bullish count, looking for a low in here than the bearish count. So if we were playing this as a diagonal, if that were 1, 2, 3 with a deep 4 and we're coming down for the 5, let me put that in a larger degree so we can make sense of it. All right, so if this is a diagonal, right, so that implies that we're, well, I suppose it still could be a leading diagonal, but to me it would suggest that we're finishing here. So we might look, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it wouldn't be terribly surprising, except in a diagonal we would not be we'd be expecting 3 waves, not clear, clean, perfectly symmetrical 5-wave structure. So I don't lean towards that count because of that, because I've got a 5 followed by potentially, well, I can see a 5 in here if that's the 3rd. It doesn't play as well as a diagonal to be finishing down here. So, well, then you got to look at it and go, well, could that be 1, 2, 1, 2? Well, then if that's what we're looking at, then we are going a whole lot lower. So if that's 1, 2, then how could we see that realized? Well, then this all has to move way, way, way over, and we're going much lower. I just, anything's possible. I just don't think that's likely. I just don't see it. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It doesn't play as well. What we've got here is what looks more likely to me is that I've got A, B, then potentially A, B, C again. So could I have a WXY? It's less likely in a second. So if this is playing as 1, 2, red or yellow flag on that as a WXY. Not it doesn't violate any rules, but it's less likely to be found there. So I continually come back to this going 5 followed by 5. What is that set up for us? Well, it would imply to me that this is 1. So this is A, B, C. This is the shaky. That's not a clean 3-way, but it's there. It's certainly not a good 5. So we'd have 5, 3, 5 finishing up. This is hard to even get a count on it. That's just a straight rip down. So let's go to a lower time frame and see if that's helpful at all. So here's the idea, still holding to the count that this is a 1 wave, and that we still. So here it is. This was me kind of trying to get a handle on it before I recorded this. As the WXY, does that potentially play? Well, we could have an ABC here, X wave. Well, if we're going WXY, then this is likely the 5-wave structure of an A wave, and then the whole idea of this playing as a 2 violates because we'd be going far beyond this pivot here. So it's a really tricky count to get clear sense of where we are. So we can we seem to have to back into it. You can see we had the same issue here. We had a good clear 5 here. We had a good clear 5 here, which is why I continually, at this point, my bias remains to the long side. All right, as long as we stay, right now we've essentially double bottomed at this 786. Now you could make the case, well, we double topped up here at the 50. Certainly possible that we double bottom down here at the 786. It's a lot of confusion because of the mix of 3s and 5s that we, as trying to apply Elliott wave theory here, we try and use that to gauge where we likely are in the count. So that's a 4-hour. And this would have us moving much lower. Let's go to if we go to even a lower time frame. Now I'm switching over to Bitfinex, right, where it's for shorter term trading here. So if we look now at this and say, all right, now I'm on a 30-minute chart. I know I'm jumping around here. It's difficult to get a good read on this. So in that count, right? So now here on the 30-minute, this is our significant pivot as a potential playing this as a 1. So the alternate instead of 1, 2 is that this is A, B. And now we're putting in a very deep C. So that would raise that count here so it's easier to follow it. Okay, so does that play? Well, the shakiness of that is the 1, 2, right? It's hard to get a 1, 2 into that, but I suppose if you went all the way down to let me get that right down there, to a 15-minute, you can carve it out there. This played fairly well. Right, and we had the good 5 wave to complete up here to give us this top. So we get a clear 5 here, right, to set up the A. Not the prettiest B wave, but it's there as an A, B, C into the B. So your anticipation now is for 5 waves. So can we get a clean 5 waves down here? Now I'm on the 30-minute here so we can see a little bit more detail. So 1, 2. All right, well, let's start measuring. Right? What are the tool sets that we can apply to this to figure out where we might be? Well, there's 1, 2. Okay, where's the high probability zone for the 3rd? Well, here's the highest probability zone. Right here. And I showed this on Tuesday. We don't quite make this. We get to the 1272. Right? We're kind of in no man's land here, and we had this big reaction here. So that would imply that this third has completed here because of the good subdivision we get here. Down for the 3, we got this end of the day spike, but we don't overlap the 1, so it stays impulsive. So that implies that we come down to 5 and we finish our third here. Now we go sideways into a flat correction. We get a very clean ABC. Now the expectation is we're coming down to finish this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to finish down here. Now we don't know if the 5's in or not yet. So does that make sense? So now we look at it and go, okay, so all right, just like any count that I was looking at, if I take the length of my 3, consider where my 4 went. Well, here's the 38 Vegas wave, all just by the book, and then we rip down here. Now, can we dig into that and get a good clean 5? Is there a case to be made for this as our pivot? You know, we're just shy of the 200. It's kind of out here in no man's land. I like to see a technical pivot on that. I just can't find it. So yeah, sure, we got a little cluster around the median line. Okay, that you know, this from the lower parallel to the upper parallel median line has been a magnet as we've returned. Hard to call that done just yet. There's a possibility that all we've done here is put in the 3 down here, and this little spike here. Now we're putting in the 4. That. We can see the subdivision, so let me zoom in here a little bit, and we'll measure in here. Could we be approaching the low to complete this 5-wave structure? Well, let's dig into it. So what are the tools that we have available to us? So we can look at this and measure. All right, there's the 1 wave. All right, if I project that from the 2, where's the high probability zone for my third? Right here. Where do we go? To the tick, the 1618. All right, so that's why in my first glance at it, I had this as the third, right? This as the 4th, right? Albeit a very shallow, and I don't love the symmetry as I look at the 2 compared to the 4, but it's a contender, right? So this draws me to that as the 3rd because we 1618 to the tick. Right, high probability. So there's our 4. Now that would be a very shallow 4. So if I measure that, if that's my 3, well, I just make the 23.6. Right, so it qualifies. Right, so it's within the normal range. But then we've just got this very abrupt and short. I'm on 30 minute. I have to go down to 5 minute to try and get that to pivot here as my low. Now, could that be the front run on the algo target down here? That's a pretty good distance from that. That would surprise me. So how we know? We're not going to know until we get a 5-wave structure. We need some sort of a move out of this that's a motive wave, right? So we need a diagonal or we get an impulse, but we need something to give us 5 waves. So measuring now, I'm looking for something to qualify this pivot, something to tell me that that's a contender as a technical low, other than a front run of, so what is that low here on Bitfinex? That's 73.28. Algo target is 72.77. You know, I mean, it's a contender. I'd like to see a little bit more separation in that 5th, but until we see something along the lines of if we can get a 1-2 and then a move off of that, all we can do is keep measuring. So if I take that, if I can get this hot, if I take, there it is, this, and I take the length of my 1 and I project from this proposed 4th here, well, that gets me to the 618, damn near to the tick. So a contender technically, right? So length of the 1 projected from the 4, the 618, the length of the 1, a common target for a 5th. So it gives me at least something I can lean on there as a potential technical pivot. But until I get a 1-2, it's really hard to lean too hard on that because I don't love the lack of subdivision that I can pull out of that 5th. Is it there? I mean, I suppose if I went down to a 5 minute, can I even dig that far and get it? Yeah, it's 1-2. It looks. Yeah, I suppose it's there. Let me open this up. Yeah, we could make that case. We could have. So let me pull this off here. So it's there. We could. It's not gorgeous, but we could have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, that's a crazy degree here, but if I get all the way down to minuscule and go into, let's go to white so you can see it. Is it there? Yeah. Can you, is it the cleanest, prettiest 5-wave structure? No, but is it there? Yeah. Yeah, it's there. So what would help? Now I'm all the way down to a 5-minute where I rarely go, but I'm just trying to qualify here. So if that were to be playing now, so we have the potential now to see the first signs, glimpse of a 1, 2, 3, 4. Can we get one more up in the 5? So let me bring that degree up. Let's at least go there. Now let's go a little bigger. Okay, can we get a 1, 2? All right, so far the ingredients are there. For a 1, 2, 4 comes down, doesn't overlap the 1. That's contender. All right, so let's see if we can get a target on this. So if I pull it from the, from the 2 low to my 3 high, what do we do? Right, well, to the 50, it's deep. We get through the 50. That's a contender. Now, can we get another push up here to get towards that target? Does that would give me a little more confidence in this low, potentially being down here and being in. Here's our 618. Gonna need this push here and now, or this can't roll over now and head back down. Otherwise, this adds credibility to the idea that this is not 1, 2, 3, 4, but simply A, B, C, putting in that 4, and then we've got one more push down here to try and get that algo target. Right, so if I go back to the 30-minute, what I was looking at before, where we were trying to qualify that low, if I get in here, right? So we were looking at it, holding on to the idea that this was the third because of the tick of the 1618. If this doesn't go impulsive, right? If it doesn't, then we got to roll this out and look at the 5th being down here, this being our 3rd down here, and then all we've done here is put in our 4th up here, potentially, right? So then this would no longer, right? So then we'd be back to, right, put it in scale so we get that degree, okay? So now we're back to, this is our 4, right? And there's one more push down for our 5. This would become the 3, one more push down for the 5. Where does that put us relative, come here, relative to the larger count? I gotta scrunch it so I can move it. All right, would that put us down here? We're getting mighty deep. Really a stretch to hang on to that as a 2, but technically it's still there until we violate that low. It's still there, right? So am I leaning too hard on my bullish bias, fighting to come up with a count? Well, I try and stay objective with it. Try to, right? So I try to just use the numbers. So we'll see, right? So first tell is, can we get 5 waves out of this to support the idea that I've got a technical pivot down here? Can I get 5 waves out of it so that I can start to build some confidence in this as my low down here? What is that? 70, we'll call it 7,300. Still hanging to the idea that this is A, B, and the C is going in. If this low is violated, then we no longer have an internal retracement and the whole thing has to be reconsidered. Right? Then we go back to, start looking back to, where were we here? My longer term, and we can see some here's the low we're trying to, we've double bottomed here. Here's our absolute low. What are we down here? That's 59. It starts getting tougher and tougher to build the bullish case here. So, but again, technically, right, until we take from this low to that high, until we, 786, reasonable place to stand it. We could actually, you could even go to the 887 on that, right? So that would be an absolute last stand down here at 65.75 for this as a wave 2. They've gone that deep before. It wouldn't be out of the norm. So that playing here is a 3-4. We're going to get all the way down here. All you can do is measure it and say, is that a likely, is there confluence down here to support that? Well, I know I've got the algo target here, right? From swing high here to swing low. The move, here's the 38. So here's that negative 23 at 63.05. Then if I look at it and measure it yet again, I say, okay, what length of the 1? Oh, come here. It's not what I wanted. Get off of there. I want this length of the 1 projected from hypothetical. Now I'm hypothetical for my 4. If I'm going to get my 4 to come back in here, and I'm going to have one more push down. Get these hot. One more push down here. There's the 887. There's the 1618 of the length of the 1 in this final leg. Here's the 100. Right. So this actually we gotta pay attention here. So now I'm glad I just caught that. Right. So this is 100. So let's double check this. Let me pull this off. So if this is going to play as 1, 2, and this we're going to be 3, we got to watch this. So let me pull all of this off. Okay, so what will be important here is if this is going, we got to look at the length of this wave relative to this wave, right? So just ahead of the 887 would be 100% of that. So if we were looking at this as some sort of a 1, 2, 3, 4 coming down for a 5, well, at that point here, right? So this would be an important pivot to know. That's, call it 67. What are we at there? 66.50. We take that out, then that can't play as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I actually don't think that's what we've got here. But that would be a significant pivot. If we break that out, then we've likely got 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we're going much lower. So bulls die hard, right? But numbers don't lie. So all we've got is probabilities and a rule set that keeps us out of bad trades. Now, I've been stopped out. I'll be quick to tell you and remind you, I've been stopped out multiple times here trying to buy in this correction. Well, stops are part of it, right? But I'm not trading enough size to where it's doing a lot of damage, but nobody likes to get stopped out. It's just part of the business, part of the game. So here's 1, 2, 3. Are we going 4, 5? I would certainly be conscious of what's happening here at these significant pivots. All right, guys, tricky trading here. Very, very tricky. So we'll just trade it by the numbers. Right now, it's a hurry up and wait. Hurry up and wait. What kind of reaction do we get off of this low? All right, I ran long here, but that's very difficult to get a clear count on this. So a little more data hopefully clears things up for us. All right, guys, I'll wrap it there.